The table is too clean for what's about to happen. Early 1990s, a label conference room in Los Angeles. Glossy wood, a glass of water sweating onto a coaster, and a contract laid open like a map of someone else's future. Prince stands over it without sitting. No entourage noise, no studio chaos. Just paper, silence, and the faint click of a pen cap. An object that suddenly feels more dangerous than any guitar. Show business loves to pretend it runs on applause. This room runs on clauses. The page is filled with language that looks harmless until it's read out loud. Delivery requirements, exclusivity, ownership, commercially reasonable, in perpetuity. A stack of signatures waits at the bottom like gravity. Prince's eyes lock onto one line. The kind of line that doesn't sound like a weapon until it's aimed at your life's work. Someone on the other side of the table, an executive voice, calm, trained, tries to move him along. It's standard. A finger taps the margin near the signature block. Tap, tap, tap. Prince doesn't tap back. He circles the line with the pen, slowly, like he's drawing a target. Freeze frame on the contract itself. Black ink, dense text, a single sentence that decides who owns tomorrow. The turning point object isn't a mic or a stage light. It's a document that turns art into inventory. Days earlier, the world outside this room looks like pure dominance. Prince is already a phenomenon, the rare artist who can write, produce, play, and perform like he's built from electricity. He's not just delivering songs, he's delivering eras. The industry feeds on that pace. Labels love productive artists the way machines love fuel. Every album is a product cycle. Every tour is a revenue engine. Every appearance is free marketing that somebody else monetizes. But the rules aren't neutral. The business of black music, especially at the top, has always carried a quiet assumption. Genius can be leased. The body that makes the sound ages. The contracts that own the sound don't. A label can be polite while it takes possession. The word partner gets used like perfume. The ledger tells the truth. Prince knows this room is not about admiration, it's about control. Not just how much money, but how the future is scheduled, packaged, and sold. He's in an era where MTV can crown you and also reduce you to a costume. Where radio formats decide what kind of black artist the public is ready for. Where executives talk about crossing over like the artist is the one traveling, when in reality the money is. The pressure arrives disguised as opportunity. We can't market what we can't plan. That's the idea behind the paperwork. Give us the albums when we need them. Give us the singles when we need them. Give us the image when we need it. The contract on the table isn't just an agreement, it's a calendar for a human being. In rehearsal spaces, Prince moves like a commander. A band hears a glance and understands. In studios, he can build a track from nothing and make it feel inevitable. But the contract world is different. In the studio, Prince is the system. In the label, he's a line item with a projected return. Weeks earlier, inside a studio lit by instrument LEDs and late-night focus, the problem becomes impossible to ignore. The vault. Prince is sitting on music, songs, demos, entire albums worth, because he doesn't create on a schedule. He creates like weather. The contract wants delivery dates. Creativity doesn't negotiate with quarters. A manager voice, measured, cautious, brings it up with paperwork in hand. They want the next release spaced out. They're worried about saturation. Prince looks from the paper to the mixing board like someone just tried to put handcuffs on a thunderstorm. The word saturation lands wrong. It's not about the audience getting tired. It's about the label losing leverage. Another meeting gets booked. Another set of smiles. Another table. The contract becomes the real stage, and the people in suits become the audience that matters more than any arena crowd, because they control distribution, promotion, and the legal ownership underneath the music. That's how the trap works. The art is loud, but the contract is permanent. In public, the artist looks powerful. In private, the signature is the crown's lock. Back in the conference room, the conversation tightens. "We're investing in you," someone says, as if money is proof of love. The contract pages slide a little closer. Prince doesn't reach for them. He pulls them back towards himself instead, claiming physical space first, because legal space is what he's really fighting for. He reads the line again, the one that decides whether the songs belong to the person who made them or the company that markets them. He can feel the stakes with a clarity that makes his face still. What can be lost is not just royalties. What can be lost is authorship, identity, the right to release music when it's alive, the right to stop being a factory. The executive voice softens, like that will help. "It's how we do business." Prince's pen hovers over the sentence, and for a moment the room is balanced on ink. He looks up once, one sharp glance that says the negotiation is about to become a war, and asks a question that lands like a blade on the table. "So which part of this is mine?" Silence answers first. Then the chair across from him shifts. A folder opens. A new page appears. A quiet ultimatum without the word ultimatum spoken. "Sign it, or watch the machine slow down around you." The pen tip touches paper, finally, and the first stroke isn't a signature. It's a line. The ink doesn't move like surrender. It moves like a cut. The next morning, same city, different room. The contract isn't on a polished conference table. It's on a studio desk beside a reel case and a stack of handwritten lyric sheets. Prince is standing again, shoulders squared, reading the sentence he marked yesterday as if he's deciding where to put a match in a room full of gasoline. The turning point object is still the contract, but now it's been dragged into his territory. Instruments, tape, the smell of cables and heat. A phone sits nearby, receiver heavy on its cradle. The label is calling, not to ask how he feels, to ask what he's doing. The world's rule is simple. Corporations expect artists to negotiate like employees. Prince doesn't. He negotiates like a creator who understands that ownership is the only form of freedom the industry respects, because the system can applaud a black genius and still own the sound that genius makes. It can celebrate the purple suit on camera and quietly keep the masters in a vault. That morning, a lawyer, calm voice, precise language, tries to create space. "We can propose amendments." Prince taps the page with his pen, once, right on the sentence. Tap. "Or," he says, and the word "or" carries a threat without violence. "We can remove it." Remove it, like it's a splinter, like it's not the whole spine of the deal. The first escalation step happens at a meeting later that day. Los Angeles, label offices, fluorescent light that makes skin look tired. A conference room again, because that's where power likes to sit. The contract is back on the table, but now it's not clean. It has a mark, a visible wound. An executive flips through the pages with that practiced face, friendly, impatient, careful not to look scared. "We saw your notes," the executive says, voice tight at the edges. "Notes," he calls it. Notes like it's a suggestion. Prince points at the crossed-out sentence. "That's not a note." A second executive, new voice, colder, leans in. "We can't have you striking out language like this. It's not—" He searches for the right word and lands on the truth by accident. "Standard." Standard is the word the industry hides behind. Standard is how a contract becomes tradition. Standard is how control becomes normal. Standard is how artists get turned into catalogs. Prince doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need volume. His finger stays on the ink line like a judge's gavel. Standard for who? The room shifts. A chair creaks. Someone exhales sharply. The hierarchy starts showing itself in posture, the suits leaning forward like they're trying to press his body into compliance, Prince standing like he's refusing gravity. The next night, the pressure changes shape. It stops being about paper and becomes about time. A call comes in, late after dinner hours, designed to catch you tired. The phone's cord drags across the desk as he picks it up. On the line is a voice that's friendly enough to be dangerous. We're hearing you want to release too much music. We're trying to protect the brand. Brand, not art. Brand is a prison with soft walls. Prince's response is short. The music is the brand. A pause. Then the voice goes for leverage. We can delay things. We can hold the release schedule. Nobody wants that. There it is, the machine reminding the artist it controls the pipeline. Not a scream, not a threat with teeth, just a quiet reminder that distribution is power. The stakes sharpen. What can be lost is momentum, audience access, radio play, the oxygen of the mainstream. The system knows it can starve you without spilling blood. The third escalation step happens at rehearsal, a big room, black curtains, bright work lights. The band is running a song and Prince stops them with a gesture, hand up, palm slicing the air. The sound cuts instantly. That gesture is an anchor, control on his side, at least here. He turns to someone off to the side, management maybe, legal, holding a folder. The folder is the same kind of folder labels use, which already feels like an intrusion. What's in it? He asks. Revisions, the person says. They offered a compromise. Prince takes the pages and scans them and finds the sentence again, rearranged but alive. It's still there in spirit. Ownership, control, delivery, exclusivity. They didn't remove it, they just dressed it better. He tosses the pages onto a chair like they're dirty. They don't hear it, he says. And now the rehearsal room is about more than music. It's about what the system refuses to hear, that creative freedom is not a vibe, it's a legal condition. The fourth escalation step comes that morning before another meeting. In a quiet kitchen or hotel suite, some private space with coffee cooling in a mug, Prince is with his team and the contract is spread across the counter. A pen sits next to it like a weapon. A manager tries to frame the label's position as business. They're worried about market cannibalization. Prince doesn't look up. His hand traces the ink line he already drew. They're worried about not owning me. This is the thesis showing itself in a new outfit. The fight isn't about money alone, it's about self-determination, about a black artist refusing to let a corporation own his output, his timing, his identity. Because once the masters and the clauses belong to them, your freedom becomes permission-based. Another voice, maybe a lawyer, attempts a softer path. We can negotiate for better royalty rates, more control over singles. Prince's pen taps the contract again. Tap, tap. That's not the problem, he says. This is the problem. By now, the label has moved from persuasion to containment. In the next meeting, the executives bring more people. More suits means more force. The table is longer. The room is colder. The contract is placed dead center as if it's a neutral object, but everyone knows it's a leash. An executive tries a different angle. You're being difficult. Difficult, that word gets used on artists the moment they insist on respect. On black artists especially, it becomes a coded punishment. Step out of the role, and the system will name you the problem. Prince doesn't flinch. He slides the contract toward them and points at the crossed-out sentence again. Difficult is owning what you didn't create. Someone, higher up now, a voice with finality, leans back and says it like a verdict. If you won't sign it as written, we may not have a deal. There's the cliff edge. The ultimatum has finally dropped its mask. Prince reaches for the pen again, but not to sign. He positions the pen tip above the same sentence, the one he already crossed out once, and the room watches his hand like it's a bomb timer. The executive's eyes track the movement. The contract is silent, but it's screaming. Right before he draws that line again, he looks up, one sharp glance that pins the room to the wall, and says, "Then you don't have me." The pen hovers. The sentence sits there, alive, waiting to be killed.
Los Angeles, early 1990s, reveals itself in one brutal detail. The contract line doesn't just get crossed out, it gets executed. A hard stroke, straight through the sentence that claims ownership and control. The kind of clause that turns an artist's lifetime into a company asset. ink over language, a human decision over corporate permanence. The turning point object is still the contract, but the true weapon is the act of refusal written in black. The reaction is immediate, and it isn't applause. A suited hand reaches forward too fast, as if the executive can physically stop the ink from existing. Paper rustles, chairs scrape, a voice snaps, controlled but cracked. You can't do that. Prince doesn't move back. He keeps the contract right where it is, palm flat on the page like a seal. That gesture is an anchor, possession, not legally yet, but spiritually, absolutely. He looks at the executive like the executive is the one misunderstanding the room. "Watch me," his silence says, even if his mouth doesn't. One of them tries to regain the script. "We'll need to have legal review." Prince cuts in with a line that doesn't sound like negotiation. It sounds like the beginning of a new era. This line doesn't survive. That's the moment the power structure reveals itself, because the system can tolerate rebellion when it's aesthetic, when it sells. It cannot tolerate rebellion when it touches ownership. Cross out a clause, and suddenly the tone changes. Respect becomes threat adjacent. Smiles become inventory management. The consequence hits the air first. A pause so long it becomes an answer. Then the lead executive pushes the contract back as if it's contaminated. "Then we're done here." Prince lifts his hand off the paper slowly, like he's releasing a trap. He doesn't grab the contract back. He doesn't plead. He stands. The chair behind him doesn't even get used. That detail matters. He never sat down because he never intended to be settled. He turns toward the door, and there's a final attempt to pull him back into the machine. "Prince," someone says, first name used like a leash, "think about what you're risking." The stakes are real: radio, marketing, distribution, the ability to reach the world at scale. The industry can punish without announcing punishment. Albums can vanish into delays. Singles can lose priority. Tour support can evaporate, and a narrative can be planted, difficult, unstable, ungrateful, so the public thinks the system is innocent. Prince stops at the door, and the only thing he offers them is clarity. "I already did." Exact action, exact reaction, exact consequence. The line is crossed out, the room breaks, and the deal, at least as they imagined it, collapses. The aftermath begins that night, not in a boardroom, but in a studio. Tape rolling, synths humming, a drum machine ticking like a clock that belongs to him. Prince isn't licking wounds, he's building leverage, because artists who understand contracts understand a second truth. If the pipeline is controlled by someone else, you either become dependent or you become unmanageable. Within days, calls get colder, conversations get shorter, meetings get postponed. The contract, now marked, becomes a problem the label can't unsee. Lawyers speak in careful phrases: not acceptable, unworkable, risk. Executives speak in moral language to hide business intent, commitment, partnership, professionalism. Same goal, different mask. The system responds the way it always does when a creator challenges ownership. It tries to isolate him. It makes it sound like a personality issue instead of a structural one. It suggests the artist is the obstacle, not the clause. That's how power protects itself, by turning a principled stand into a temperament. But the next morning, the world doesn't end for him. That's the part the contracts never prepare for. Prince wakes up still Prince, still capable, still prolific, still able to make the very thing the industry sells. He goes to work. The studio becomes not just a creative space, but a fortress. Every instrument is an anchor detail of autonomy. The guitar leaning against an amp, the keyboard rigged and ready, the mic waiting. The music keeps coming because that's the one resource the label can't manufacture without him. And this is where the thesis turns from argument to proof. The only way to resist a machine built to own you is to remain a source it cannot replace. The broader cultural consequence is quieter but heavier. A black artist at the highest level has just made the private battle visible, not just bad contracts, but the idea that the industry expects permanent ownership of a person's output. It's not an accident that the language is designed to feel inevitable, standard, in perpetuity, exclusive. Those phrases are the architecture of control. In the weeks that follow, the relationship doesn't magically heal. It hardens. Negotiations become trench warfare, memos, revisions, counter-revisions. Each new draft is a test of who blinks first. Prince's team hears the same refrain, "That's not how it's done." But Prince has already answered that refrain with ink. He crossed out the line because the line crossed him first. The system's response is predictable. It tries to remind him that fame has a gate, that there are only so many radio stations, only so many promotional budgets, only so many TV slots. It tries to make him feel lucky instead of powerful. It tries to make him grateful instead of free. And yet, every time the machine tightens, the story becomes more legendary, because the fight isn't about ego, it's about ownership of art, ownership of self, ownership of time. That contract moment becomes a signal flare for anyone watching closely. There is a difference between being celebrated and being controlled. The industry will clap for you while it files your masters in a cabinet under its name. The applause is temporary. The paperwork is forever. The meaning lands when the dust settles. Crossing out one line doesn't fix the whole business overnight, but it changes the relationship between artist and contract in the only way that matters, by proving refusal is possible. It shows the system's weak spot. It depends on artists accepting permanence as normal. Prince crossed out a sentence, and in doing so, crossed out an assumption that genius is for rent. In the end, the room didn't change him. He changed the room's rules, if only by force of ink. Because the most dangerous sound in that era wasn't a guitar solo. It was a pen deciding the music would belong to the one who made it.